let me share my screen here. I'm going to share with you guys the LOI. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Yep. All right, let's rock. Let me share my screen here. So here is the LOI that I put together. All right, if you guys are all looking at this screen, if you're in the comments, say hello. Say hello to me. Drop a 9 if you've been following me this week. Drop a 9 in there if you're having a good time, if you've been following us this week. If you're excited to go through this LOI and tie this all in a pretty bow and get this thing to the LOI phase, drop a 9 in the chat. Let's go through this. So also, I wanted to share with you guys, before I go in the LOI, let me share with you guys the results of our Sendy text message. Love to see the 9s, baby. Love it, love it, love it. I sent out text messages to 120 names and I got a wrong number, a We Are Renters, another wrong number, and a lose my number troll. So, but here's the point here. This is, I'm tossing lines out. So remember on Tuesday, I not only cold called, but I also sent a text blast to sellers, right? It said, hey, it auto-populates the name. I'm a local landlord reaching out. If not, no worries, check out this video and I'll explain. This is a video, this is a link to a video of just me explaining that we're buying apartments in their market. It's a little video that I just cut. You can do it on your phone, you can do it on your computer, and it just says, hey, my name is Chad, I'm with Titan Capital. We're actually looking to buy apartments in your market. If you'd consider selling, please reach out. So I send that out. It was a swing and a miss on the initial feedback from the text, but this is a long game you're playing. I just had an apartment complex here in Nashville that somebody reached out to us. They got a piece of material, a piece of mail from us, February of 2020, and I'm in negotiations on the deal right now. And February of 2020, they got a piece of mail from us and they kept it. And when it was time to sell, over 18 months later, they called and said, hey, you know, it's time. Our father passed away. He built the property and now we inherited it and we really don't know what to do. So when you guys see those text messages and you see the 4 responses that came in that said, lose my number, troll. First of all, that's not about me. That's about them. So it doesn't bother me. Secondly, I'm planting a lot of seeds. Like think about, I didn't get responses from 117 people, but 117 people got my message. So it may not be the right time now, but it may be the right time in 6 months, in a year. And they're going to remember that video, especially because I'm hitting them consistently with other things too. Okay. So we talked about that on deal sourcing, but I wanted to share that with you guys. As we're wrapping everything up, I wanted to share those responses that came back with you guys. And also, you know, encourage you guys, don't let that discourage you that not a hot lead doesn't come from a text blast to 120 people. It's just about consistent outbound activity. Cool. All right, let's get into this LOI. So here is a standard letter of intent. LOI, letter of intent to purchase a property. That's what it means. This is a non-binding offer. So you can put terms in this LOI. This does not bind you to actually close on the property. That is done through a purchase and sale agreement, which we'll talk about here in a second. So what I do is I put my company name. I got a PO box here in Mount Juliet. Real property known as Lee Point Apartments. Here's the date up here. It's Titan Capital Group is my company. I always put and/or assigns in my LOI because I create an LLC for every property that we purchase. Every time we buy a new building, we create an LLC that just owns that building. So I'd probably call this one, you know, Lee Point LLC or Lee Drive LLC. I usually do the road. Definitely always do that and make sure you put and/or assigns so they know that you're planning on doing that. Property consists of 72 units. This is basically a summary of the terms that you're prepared to offer on a purchase and sale agreement that will be negotiated. Purchaser offers to acquire a property for a total purchase price of $3.8 million. And here's why I came up with 3.8. So if you guys remember, I was like just shy of 5 million. I had some good conversations yesterday with some property managers that told me that this is going to be a bigger project. Like this is a big project. Currently, the rents that are inflated are coming from government subsidies because there are apparently some it's like a refugee, it's not a refugee camp, but it's like there are some, it's a Bosnian place that gets subsidies from the government, and that's why they're fully occupied over there. And it's a big reposition is essentially what it is. And we just did this on a building here, like where, you know, they were weekly rentals and we had to kind of clear everything out and sort of revamp the building, and we did it successfully. So it's possible to revamp and turn an asset this large. It's very, to turn a ship this big, but it takes time, it takes money, and it takes knowledge, right? So this offer is based on me knowing that we're going to have to turn this ship, and I still haven't seen the building, but here's where my offer went from. This is why my offer went from 5 million to 3.8 after talking to some property managers and digging into the building and the situation a little bit more. I underwrote this thing with an increased vacancy number, thinking that I will have at least 50% vacancy in year 1, 40% vacancy in year 2, 40% vacancy in year 3, and then I'll stabilize out in year 4, 5, and 6, and 7 with a sale in year 7. So that being said, I'm being conservative with my underwriting, that if I'm going to go in, and also my CapEx budget, I went from thinking, hey, I'm going to put $100,000 into this building, to really, from the feedback that I was getting, to thinking, all right, I'm going to have to put actually about $6,000 a unit into this, which puts my CapEx budget at $432,000. $6,000 a unit is to really, if you're really going to turn a building, $6,000 a unit is what you're going to need. At least, right? If you're gonna turn a big property like this, if you're going in and it's a stabilized asset, that's where that 100,000 was coming in, is because I was thinking, okay, the rents are up, it's a stabilized asset. But as I dug deeper and realized we're gonna have to turn this ship, my CapEx budget is gonna go up, because right now, to get regular people that are not on government subsidies, to get regular people to pay that sort of rental rate, I know that I'm gonna have to turn these units. I know that I'm going to have LVP flooring and Formica countertops and new cabinets, and I'm going to have to paint them, and I'm going to have to do updated vanities. And these are 1,200 square foot units. So these are not small units, right? We're turning units, here for about 3,800 that are 900 square feet, 800, 900 square feet. So I'm going to need a little bit more meat on the bone. So that's where my numbers went from 100 CapEx to 432 in CapEx. And my vacancy went from, I was underwriting it at 90% occupancy, and I dropped it down to 50% occupancy in year 1, 50% in year 1, 60% in year 2, 60% in year 3, and then 80%, and then back up to 90 by year 5. Okay. And then a sale in year 7. So, and that's super conservative too. You can really turn an asset in 24 months with a really good property manager. You can do that in 24 months, but I would rather be pleasantly surprised and turn it sooner and have the cushion to take 36 months. God forbid, the market changes, something happens. It can take 36 months and I'm still okay. Does that make sense? I wanted you guys to know, how I came up with the 3.8, and you just don't see a number and you're like, what is that number? And the other thing too, so there's some things that are going to happen, and we'll keep going through this LOI, but there's some things that are going to come from this LOI, right? There's a few options, right? They're either going to accept it, they're going to counter it, or they're going to reject it. Those are the only 3 things that can happen. And on an LOI, typically someone will counter by striking through the terms that they want to counter and just initialing. And then you go back and forth on the LOI a little bit. And then once you agree to terms on an LOI, then you can go into a purchase and sale agreement. I was going to show you another LOI, but so that's what, then the next step is the purchase and sale agreement, which it says, upon execution of this letter, purchaser and its attorneys will draft up a purchase and sale agreement, and then you'll have 10 days to go back and forth and redline that agreement. Okay, that's the contract. This is not a contract. This is just an offer, letter of intent. Earnest money deposit. Upon execution of the purchase and sale agreement, purchaser will deposit $50,000 as earnest money. You have to put up a little chunk of earnest money. Typically, if you have a guarantor or balance sheet person, they can hopefully help with that. If you have it, put up the earnest money. It's refundable during your due diligence period. All right, this earnest money is not hard until after due diligence. Hard means non-refundable. Here's my due diligence period. I do 45 days. If I have to accelerate and close sooner, I can do a 30-day due diligence, but this is a 45-day due diligence. It allows me to get my due diligence documents that I need. I need all the copies of the bills, the utilities, I need everything. And then my due diligence period starts. That's a big thing right here. Let me just say this real quick. The due diligence period, when you go into contract, the due diligence period should not start until you receive all of the documents that will satisfy that you're able to start due diligence. I have made that mistake where I've gone under contract with a 30-day, 45-day due diligence, and it took them 2 weeks to get me, copies of the leases and things, and my clock was just ticking. Okay, so that's a little tip there. The clock does not start until you send them an email that says, I have all the due diligence documents I need, thank you. And now your clock starts. Cool. So that's 45 days due diligence. This language in here is pretty boilerplate. Basically, you can cancel. Repeat that again, Chad Peely. Hey, Peely, how you doing? Your due diligence period does not start until you receive your due diligence documents. Huge. Because if they drag their feet for 3 weeks to get you the documents you need for your lender, because you're going to go into as soon as you get this PSA, you're going to go to your lender. I'm going to go to this guy, Travis, and I'm going to say, Travis, we need to fund this thing. He's going to say, well, I need leases. I need this to go all through underwriting. And you're going to be like, well, I don't have it. And your whole clock is ticking and your earnest money is about to go hard. Yes, that's big. So I've made that mistake. Let me save you from making that same mistake. And you put that in your purchase and sale agreement. Okay. So if due diligence materials are delivered after the 5-day extension, it will be subsequently extended. So I have it written in my LOI. I also always put an option. I put a 30-day option to extend due diligence for an additional $10,000. So I get an option at the end of the 30 days or the end of the 45 to get another 30 days for 10 grand if I need it. And that I've done that. I put that in my LOIs because sometimes banks, depending on how the financials are, when you get the financials after purchase and sale agreement, you get the due diligence items. Sometimes the lender can be the one that takes a little bit of time, and you may need some more time. And it's better to put the option in the contract than have to go back to the seller and try and negotiate in the option. I'm just going to be like, hey, I'm going to exercise my 30-day option. So give yourself options, give yourselves outs when you're going into these contracts, and make it clear what the terms are going to be. And then closing, I have 45 days after the due diligence period expires for closing. So I never put hard, this is a little different than single family, guys. I don't put hard dates. You don't put closing is going to be July 31st. No, closing is a strict day period post when everything gets done, because things tend to move a little slower in commercial, like purchase and sale negotiations could take, a couple weeks, right? So put in a day period, and this contract would technically be considered 45-45. So if you guys want to learn the lingo, I would say this is a 45-45. It's 45-day due diligence with a 45-day close. I'm closing in 90 days, basically, is what I'm telling the seller. Okay, and he can counter, he could counter and say 45-day due diligence is fine, and I want a 14-day close. And, we'll go back and forth on that. Cool. Yeah. This is how I do all my LOIs, guys. And then it talks about closing, that the taxes are going to be prorated. Closing costs will be paid for. A seller is going to pay title examination, and then we're going to split any escrow fees. And then all rents and security deposits. So security deposits transfer at closing, and then all rents and are prorated to whatever month. Like if you close on the 15th, you're going to get half of the rents for that month, and that transfers over on the closing statement. Okay, so that's what proration means. Prorated. And then the taxes are also prorated. So he's going to pay, let's say we close July 31st. He'll pay January through July of taxes, and then I'm going to pay the rest. Okay. And then there's some contingencies to closing, just subject to some verifications. This is in addition to my due diligence period. This basically is saying that we definitely get clear title. We have to get clear title on this. This confidentiality is just basically saying, this is a confidential letter of intent. And then another thing here is the non-binding. This is a non-binding letter. So this is where, I feel it's based on rents due, Mike. It's based on rents due. I always do it based on the lease is the governing document. So it's whatever is due on that lease. They might negotiate with you and say it should be on rents collected, but it should be on rents due. Non-binding letter. This is where, I want you guys to feel comfortable. We did, 0 to an LOI in 5 days. You guys can submit an LOI, and it's okay. Like if you get into this and you submit an LOI and he accepts it, and I go to my property manager on Thursday, and my property manager says, Chad, $432,000 is not enough money. You need $800,000. I'm not binded to this LOI. Like this is just, and like, hey, this is a rough offer of what I think I could pay for this property. Is this acceptable to you? Would you even entertain going into a purchase and sale negotiations? And then you really start to, then you can really get more into the weeds, but you don't need to be like, don't overthink this. It's a non-binding letter. I'm just saying, hey, I'd pay 3.8. And this seller, if I'm being honest with you guys, he's probably going to tell me to kick rocks and fly a kite. And that's okay, because he thinks his property is worth more because it's based on what he thinks his value is on his rents and his cap rate. But I know that that game plan and the way he's running his property is not the way I want to run the property. So I'm making him an offer based on how I value the property. It's still a fair offer. I can show you guys how this is based on, it's based on a cap rate from a fair offer, but it's based on a reposition that I need to do that I believe is in the best interest of the long term of the asset for me and my investors. So I don't care if he's, doesn't agree with me. It's his problem. It's not mine. I'm going to make him an offer based on what I could pay for the property. This is what I could pay for it. It's fair. I think this is fair for what I'm going to do to this property. Okay. If he doesn't think so, that's fine. Don't let emotions get into this, guys. This is it's a business, right? So there's the non-binding letter. And then I have an expiration date. I forgot to change this expiration date. So this one's going to be, I'm going to give him till, let's go June. I'm going to give him a week, June 3rd, 2021. Reposition does mean renovations. Sorry, I'm kind of going through some terminology. If I flew over you with any terminology, I got Peely and Jason in there to sort of help out with some of the questions that are rolling in. And tomorrow we're doing a bonus day. So if you guys have questions from the last 5 days, like jot them down, because tomorrow, that bonus day, like I want to come in here and answer all of the questions for, that you guys had over the last 5 days on your progress, like on your deals, on your calls to brokers, on like, tell me how those went. What questions did you have? So all those you can write down if you have them for me. In the meantime, Jason Peely can answer some of the terminology stuff. Submit the LOI based on what you can pay for the property. Yep. Reposition, renovation and reposition are a little different, because renovation is actually the money that's going into the property, and reposition is more of a macro, like we're repositioning this property. So I'm clearing out the government subsidy sort of narrative at this thing. And I'm going to slowly work in a nice Bowling Green tenant base. And I have this prepared to take me, 24 to 36 months. And I plan on not making this as an equity play and a long-term 7-year hold. So I'm not factoring in a bunch of cash flow to come in years 1 and 2. Like it's a long game you're playing, guys. Like, so have that vision. What do you guys say? You guys want to send this LOI? Let's send it. You guys can see, let me just pull up this email. I'm going to send this LOI to this broker. And when I hit send, and I hope you guys are doing this with me, because this is fun. This is the fun part. When I hit send, we have officially completed the challenge for 5 days, not knowing anybody in the market. We're going to recap here in a second. I'm going to bring my friend Bill on. There's going to be some stuff that comes from this, guys. This is just submitting the LOI, and there's going to be some stuff that comes after, and we're not going to leave you hanging. Trust me, we're not going to leave you hanging. We got something for you guys. Let me grab this. Actually, I'll just share with you guys. Hang on one second, guys. I'm doing this LOI. I'm just putting this email together, and I'll share my screen. Where's this LOI? Hang with me, hang with me. Give me this guy's email address. All right, let me share my screen here. Got this typed up. I don't really have it typed up, but this is, I'm not a very wordy person, and I don't feel the need to, I don't really feel the need to like really justify my numbers too much, but I would say Barry, you see attached LOI for Lee Point Apartments. It's always nerve-wracking when you know a bunch of people are watching you type. You just get nervous about typing. Please see attached LOI for Lee Point Apartments. I'm just going to say that. I mean, there are times where I have, if I have really good relationships with brokers, then I will explain how I got to my number. But I don't always feel required to, explain to them why you don't need to justify why your number is your number yet, you know, or at all to them. If you start to develop those good relationships and brokers are sending you real, you know, a steady flow of pocket listings, then you may want to say, hey, you know, I'm at 3.8. It's because I'm factoring in a high vacancy. You know, I may say, after consulting with my team in Bowling Green, this is the most we could offer for this property at this time. Thank you for the opportunity. So I'm basically telling him like, hey, I talked to the team. I know this isn't in a great area. And then my subject is going to be LOI Lee Point. All right, guys, we're sending LOI. Let me just double check. I always double check my attachments. There it is, $3.8 million, 72 units going out. Bang. That's it. Challenge complete.